can you just put into context for us, what are the factors the U.S. is going to be weighing, as President Trump says 2 weeks is now the maximum for his decision?
Wow, Tyler. So I could tell you what I think Donald Trump is weighing, and I could tell you what I think the U.S. should be weighing. I'm not sure that those are the same things, though. For President Trump, a lot of this is personal. He made offers to the Iranians. The Iranians rejected those offers, or at least they had up until Israel bombed. He's obviously got his domestic constituents. And of course, as you guys have pointed out, he's got a split constituency. He's got a group of traditional conservative internationalists who very much want to join the war, who do not want to see Iran acquire nuclear weapons and want to do everything to prevent it. He's also got his MAGA base, which include a lot of neo-isolationists who are not interested in Iran, anything going on there. Israel, for that matter, they're opposing him just as fiercely. And I think for the president, there's a big set of question marks as to what are the risks of long-term American engagement? Will the U.S. be sucked into a long-term war? As when he pointed out, he promised no forever wars. On the other hand, he clearly would like to get a deal. I think that if he can't get a deal, he'd certainly like to be the president who ended the Iranian nuclear threat forever. So I think he's got a whole host of different considerations there in his own mind. And I think that's why he hasn't made a decision yet, and why we've seen him swing back and forth. At one point, seemed more likely to go, now maybe less so, now weighing it.
Yeah, it does feel like we're in a slightly different world than we were even on Wednesday when we last talked about this. Ken, there's a lot of talk today about the day after, and this is what Steve Bannon and others are urging the president to consider. What do you think? If the United States chose to strike Fordo or other sites with a couple of B-2 bombers, this isolated strike as it's been characterized, what would Iran be compelled to do in return?
But look, this is a very big question. On the one hand, the Iranians have invested a tremendous amount into this nuclear program. It's very important to the regime. Its destruction is going to be a very painful pill for them to swallow. And they probably fear that it's the kind of thing that could undermine the stability of the regime. On the other hand, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, has demonstrated time and again over the decades that he is incredibly respectful of American military power, and that ultimately, he's not a nice man, I don't particularly care for him, but he is both prudent and he is a strategic thinker. We have seen him more or less rein in his horns, take his licks, go back to the drawing board when he realized that he was overmatched. Your viewers may remember 2020, President Trump killed the number 2 man in Iran, Qasem Soleimani, the head of their Quds force. Yeah. So the second most, and the Iranian response was minimal.
Right. So to build off of this, our analysts at Bloomberg say that if the Fordo nuclear site and other nuclear facilities were hit, it would likely serve a devastating blow, but it wouldn't end Iran's nuclear program. Can you put into context here, do we risk Iran doubling down on efforts moving forward?
Yes, I think this is the most important question, Tyler. I really hope that this is the foremost issue that President Trump thinks about, that it's not enough to simply destroy the Iranian program now. The really important issue is making sure that Iran doesn't rebuild its nuclear program and just try to get nuclear weapons as fast as it can. Right? And that means whatever the United States does has to be designed to do that. The Fordo facility is important, but the real issue is that at the end of the day, no one is going to be able to take the knowledge of how to build nuclear weapons away. Neither we nor the Israelis are going to be able to kill the knowledge of how to make a nuclear weapon out of the heads of many, many Iranian scientists. And we should understand, the Iranians right now have about 300 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That does not seem to have been destroyed. That's enough for about 10 nuclear weapons. Plus, they've got huge amounts of uranium feedstock. They have centrifuges that are unaccounted for. Even if we were to bomb Fordo, there's a bunch of centrifuges that we don't know where they are that could be used to enrich that uranium. And what's more, centrifuges aren't that hard to build, and the Iranians now know how to do it. So this is the great problem moving forward, is it's not enough to simply destroy what Iran has now. Whatever happens at the end of this war, whether it's Israel alone or Israel and the U.S. or Israel, the U.S. and our allies, we have to make sure that Iran will not, has no interest in, is deterred from rebuilding its nuclear program.
Okay, so let's consider what could be done then in the next 2 weeks, Ken. The president was asked about this, President Trump today, about the prospect of striking Iran and what might happen in the meantime. Here's what he said.
I'm not going to talk about ground forces. The last thing you want to do is ground forces.
Does Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time. And I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
He says he doesn't want to even talk about ground forces, Ken, but Israel is talking about ground forces. To what extent does this additional time allow Benjamin Netanyahu to put special forces on the ground in Iran, potentially knock out Fordo without B-2 bombers, and do even more damage that would keep the United States from having to intervene offensively? Is that possible in your view?
Oh, absolutely. And look, I hope that actually is what happens. I think that's in many ways a better outcome. Even if the United States decides to enter the war after that, that would be a better way to do it. Then the United States could, again, focus on that long-term goal of preventing Iran from reconstituting, and the threat of U.S. force could be helpful to that. But, you're making a really important point, Joe, which is that the Israelis would not have started this if they did not have a plan for how to deal with Fordo without having B-2 bombers and GBU-57 bunker busters, MOPS, the massive ordnance penetrators, right? They've been looking at Fordo for 16 years. They are brilliant at coming up with plans. We've seen them with the beepers in Lebanon, with the drone base outside of Tehran here in Iran, right? These guys are not dumb, and they would not have gone into this if they did not have some kind of a plausible plan. May not be 100% certain. They may prefer that we do it, but there's no question in my mind that they have a plan in mind that they could execute to try to take down Fordo. And I actually think it would be much better for the United States, for the Israelis, for everyone, if the Israelis were the ones to try it first, and then only if it failed, that the United States then make a decision, do we need to come in and take out this facility and take on the responsibility for the wider war?